Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In a startling turn of events in the U.S. presidential race, the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump in Pennsylvania is being seen as this event that changes everything. During his campaign address, a 20-year-old fired a bullet that grazed Trump's right ear. Will this tragic event now bolster Trump's candidacy as he faces off against President Biden? Little is known about this accused. He is being described as a Republican sympathizer, but we really don't know who he was and if he really had any ties to any radical groups. Now, President Biden, of course, has called for toning down the political rhetoric and also not treat fellow Americans as rivals, while Trump has said that he was supposed to be dead. In fact, he has given an interview to New York Post, in fact, being grateful for his life. But does this change everything from here on? 120 days to go for U.S. elections. Does this reset everything? That's what we will try and understand tonight. Joining me is, of course, Catherine Gibson, who's the Voice of America's congressional correspondent. We have Professor Peter Kuznick, who is Professor of History, Director in Nuclear Studies Institute, American University, Washington, D.C. And we also have Dr. Bharat Bharai, who is the chairperson of the U.S.-India Community Foundation. Thank you, all of you, for joining me on this show. To you, Catherine, first, tell us how does everything from the ground look like? You are in Milwaukee, reporting from there on a very important event, the Republican convention. Tell us, how does everything change from here? What are people on the ground saying?
That's right. So the Republican National Convention is just getting kicked off here in Milwaukee, the very first day, Monday, and we're just getting the sense of some of the heightened security procedures. Of course, we already knew that this event was going to be high security, but it's even more tightened down now, walking through multiple security checkpoints just to get into this arena. And we know that we will be hearing later on today from the presumptive Republican nominee, Donald Trump. We're hearing also that he may announce his vice presidential pick as early as today. That will be a source of great excitement. He's telling people here in the U.S. that he's scrapped his convention speech, which had already been written before that assassination attempt, really reworking the focus of it to bring together Americans a message of unity. So, well, it's a little too early to see if this assassination attempt bolsters his election chances. It is already changing the way he runs his campaign.
Right. Professor Kuznick, over the last few months, a lot of us who have been following the U.S. election campaign very closely, we saw some very interesting critical debates around reproductive rights. We saw the debate on healthcare, of course, other things like immigration. How does this change that? Does this mean that the spotlight is completely on this assassination attempt? Does it also change the policy, the campaign around policy issues that was taking place in the last few months?
We have to remember that the discussion in the United States prior to this assassination attempt was all about whether Biden should run or not. After Biden's disastrous debate performance on June 27th, there was enormous pressure on him to step aside and let somebody more vigorous, younger, and more progressive replace him on the ticket. Now that discussion, for the time being at least, has stopped. And the question is where is Trump going to land on this? Are we going to see a new Donald Trump? Donald Trump has been a divider. He's been the most divisive figure in American political history in many, many decades, if not ever. And so he's been inflaming his partisan right-wing base. And now, is he going to step back from that? Is he really going to try to act like a unifier? Is he going to conciliate? Is he going to reach out to the Democrats? That would change the nature of this campaign. And so we're waiting to see which Donald Trump shows up at the convention. We've already seen some of his close allies, J.D. Vance, Tim Scott, Ted Cruz, one of Trump's sons, blaming this on the Democrats. We don't know. We have no idea what this guy's motives were. He's a registered Republican. 3 years ago when he was 17, he gave a few dollars to some pro-democratic organization, but we know very, very little about him or his motives. So very much is uncertain right now. We don't know which direction this investigation is going to go. We don't know which direction Donald Trump is going to go. We don't know if the Democrats are going to tone down their rhetoric as well. So this is a very, very crucial and undecided moment right now in American politics.
Right. Catherine, President Biden currently trails in all opinion polls. Would replacing him with another candidate, would that have helped Democrats? Because I was listening to a lot of voices, but, probably it wasn't done at a time it should have been done. What is the mood like when it comes to the campaign of the Democrats?
Well, without a doubt, the assassination attempt on Donald Trump has completely changed the calculation for congressional Democrats. I was on Capitol Hill before I came here to Milwaukee, reporting, talking to lawmakers who had some concerns about Biden's candidacy. There was some growing sense that they needed to replace him with another candidate. That has absolutely changed now. This is too uncertain of a moment overall in the United States. The sense is that the attention is now on Milwaukee, on the Republicans and how they handle this. And the discussion about President Biden for now is on the back burner. It is set aside.
Right. Mr. Barai, how do you see this, the campaign and the fallout of this assassination attempt on, Mr. Trump? Because clearly the way the country seems to have responded to this, I was hearing multiple voices while people have been talking about the need for calm and peace. I also, heard Ian Bremmer talk to my colleague Myra Shakil, where he said that the response should have been like 9/11, but it's more like what we saw in the Capitol Hill violence. How would you assess the reactions coming from the society that have emerged from this incident? Are they also divided when it comes to criticizing or condemning this form of violence?
Well, it's good that both the parties and the officials have condemned this. I hope that those people who are peddling fake narratives or exaggerated narratives, they will tone down their temperature and try to behave and talk about what are the political differences, what are the policy differences, and try to seek their votes in name of policy differences rather than individual character assassination. The Indian Americans have soundly condemned any attempt on any political candidate, whether it is Trump or anybody else, in trying to assassinate or physical violence that takes place.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Barai. We also have Ramesh Kapoor, who's the Finance Vice Chair of the Democratic National Committee, and he'll also be attending the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. We also have Dr. Sampath Shivangi, who's a delegate to the Republican Convention in Milwaukee. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Mr. Kapoor, I have followed your work even when the caste debate was going on in California. In fact, you had requested for the use of veto power. Tell us, how is the Indian, American community looking at, this attack on Trump? Because, while under Mr. Trump, we of course had a good time. It was under President Biden that, Mr. Modi, the Prime Minister of India, was also given he was accorded a state visit, and we saw this whole red carpet being this welcome that he enjoyed in US is something that Indians carry with a lot of pride. So what is the Indian American community thinking right now, sir?
Well, I guess I don't know I haven't talked to anybody, but they are, of course, conspiracy theories are flying around, and it doesn't make sense with this theory. My analysis is that when you start going into the mud, okay. Which is what the Republican Party has done consistently, where they have really put in violence constantly, and it has come to the roost now, in the situations. So my solution is, where do we go from here? Okay, my solution is very simple. We had a crisis at one time. During Nixon's time, we had a problem in the United States. So how do you heal? I want the solution instead of talking about the problems that are there. And my solution is basically, and my recommendation to the president is, I think he should pardon Trump completely. All right. And that's the only thing that will heal the nation. And then later on, pardon his son. Okay? And we move on in that way because the courts have not touched this situation. It's like a Swiss cheese now. There are holes in all the cases
Right.
that are now. So my solution is to pardon after the convention, pardon Trump, and then later on pardon, and that will heal the country a little more. All right, and then the next solution is then we have to decide. Then, as delegates, have to decide where do we move? Do we keep the president on the ticket, or do we move on to the vice president Kamala Harris,
Right.
so he can keep his legacy, or do we have a delegate selection in Chicago?
Right.
So I look at solutions, okay, instead of finger pointing. The thing is done. Let's move on, and that's what my suggestion is that we should do. And I've recommended to the president to do that. All right. So let's see if he listens to my suggestions.
Right. Dr. Sampath, the attack happened hours before the Republican convention where, finally Mr. Trump is expected to take up the mantle of being the official Republican candidate. Is Mr. Trump poised to benefit from a sympathy wave in this election, or do you think that this is something that only has polarized the nation further?
Yes, it was very unfortunate that somebody tried to shoot in a public meeting. It happened in India. Mahatma Gandhi died because of somebody, a crazy man went and shot him. But I think it was lucky for Americans and for American living Indians that Trump survived. He had hardly any injuries, some injury and on his ear. He's already in Milwaukee, where I am. So he's back to normalcy, at least physically. It takes time to heal mentally and otherwise. We are hoping that President Biden's speech was very appropriate, very magnificent speech he made. He united Americans. I hope that will continue and we won't have any issues. Actually, as mentioned, we were told that vice presidential nomination will be done tomorrow, that is Tuesday evening, and I am attending the entire convention. So I think there are a few Indians in the Republican Party. I am there for the last 48 years in the party. So I have some say. I'm a delegate, possibly only one from Indian American side. So we will make sure that we have a dinner with President Trump on Thursday evening. We'll definitely meet and try to console him and the Democratic group so that America lives like one. Maybe the whole world, has some kind of
Right.
patch-up work to be done. I think we welcome that spirit, and we'll continue to flourish and do well with
Right.
Indian Americans.
Right. Professor Kasnik, Saturday's events are a nightmare for any country, but I've always seen America as a country that loves disagreements. So when you ask people to be calm, there's also this danger of everybody not really arguing with themselves, right? Arguing with each other. So how do you look at, the appeals made by both President Biden and also several others, including Mr. Trump, and, this whole culture of political violence that America has faced and sort of survived, from Abraham Lincoln to the Kennedys to Roosevelt's to Garfield, Wallace, everyone. How do you see America is also responding to something like this, and also the response to violence like this, asking for people to tone down their political rhetoric? Do you think that's of advantage to a democracy like the United States of America?
I think it's a good idea that we debate the issues and the policies rather than have all these personal attacks, these ad hominem attacks. But the country is so deeply divided right now that it's going to be very, very difficult to achieve. There's going to be a moment now when the rhetoric is going to be toned down a little bit, but then it's going to revert to what it was before. For example, I hear the words from President Biden. They're very encouraging. They're very positive. They have a calming effect. But for Biden to say that violence has no place in America, at the same time he's providing the arms to Israel that are being used to kill the people in Gaza, at the same time he's providing the arms to Ukraine, instead of looking for diplomacy on the global scale. The United States, there's a certain hypocrisy that people can get away with for a short time, but we're very soon going to revert, I'm afraid, to the same kind of divisiveness, name-calling, threats, criminalization of each other that we've seen going on. So we're hopeful that maybe the mood will change and the tone of the debate will change, but I'm not optimistic given all of America's history and how divided we are right now in the United States.
Right. That's well said. Mr. Kapoor, this incident was also swiftly met with calls from elected lawmakers for a reset in polarization that, in some ways has come to define what modern U.S. politics stands for. Should leaders be blamed for political violence? In other words, should they also be taking responsibility for the way society looks at their statements? Because, there is on one hand, one leader says that, the opposition is vermin, and the other hand, somebody says that, if this man comes to power, it's going to be end of democracy. How do you see this battle for language that is far more civilized, far more democratic?
Well, it's the part of the problem is, of course, America has always been a violent society. I mean, basically, that's what it is. That's their culture. Guns are there. We can look at solutions now. Maybe AK-47s, like the Brady bill was banned. And this might be the solution to ban that. That will help. But politicians at the end of the day are also looking to get elected. So whatever reason they find, and that's why they are politicians. They're not sadhus. They're not in other fields. They are going to use that effectively. But unfortunately, recently with Donald Trump, the level of vitriol is at a very high level. All right. And unless he decides, this is an opportunity unless he decides to bring it down, and he loses in the election, this will keep going on. If he wins with some sympathy votes that he will get, politicians will think that to speak that way of others, the courts, the institutions, and democracy, the way he speaks, we'll keep going on. Right. So the ideal thing, if United States Americans want to stop this, they should do it in the ballot and let him lose. And but his personality is he'll keep running again. Even if he loses, he'll say, well, it was stolen again, and then he'll run again till Mother Nature calls him 6 feet under the ground. Right. Because this is a great way of his style is his style. All right. Yes. And this is a great way of raising money and keeping in the limelight, which is what politicians want to be in the limelight. Right. So that my sense is that's what will happen, and America will have to go through this situation. Because with globalization, the problem is with globalization, that there's a whole part of American society that has been hollowed, where jobs have been outsourced. Everybody says outsourcing is, of course, India likes outsourcing, with IT and other things. But the reality of what's happened in America is that all the white folks that are there are being marginalized, and their manhood is challenged. And unless that jobs do not come back, I think we will keep having this problem in America till there's a stable situation. So, everything is not globalization, is not the ideal solution. Somewhere in the middle is the solution. So I think we will, even if they calm down the populace itself, okay? And, it happens like, in India also, the Muslims had a great control with the Congress party, and they were in power, and now they were
Right.
not in power. They resented it. Same thing, the white people over here felt that they were in power, and they didn't, and they lost the power with more immigrants, other people coming, and they feel that it owed to them, and that society, and the pendulum will swing one
Right.
way, the pendulum will swing back, and that's what will happen in the United States. But what do you do initially? Okay, I think what
Okay,
was
let
done
let me
during
get a
Nixon's
response
time.
from Dr. Sampath on something very important that you said. Mr. Kapoor has been talking about solutions, which I think is very right. Dr. Sampath, would you agree with the fact that if Mr. Trump, even, if he becomes a president again, do you think that he would be open to making policy changes, specifically with regard to gun violence, something that needs to be thought about specifically with what happened yesterday?
It's possible because having experienced gun violence himself, it may change his mind. I mean, nobody is permanent. I think President Trump is willing to listen. I think few of maybe Indian Americans, might impress him that gun violence is impossible thing. He has had his own experience of his life. I think he'll be changed man. That's what I feel. Knowing him for last 10 years, I've met him many, many times. I've been to Mar-a-Lago, his home for lunch. So he seems maybe on the outwardly impossible to handle, but I think inwardly he's a changed man. I see him for the last few months at least, that he would be willing to listen. Like, I don't think he's going to rule out everybody, including me, that I'm a delegate. I'm going to vote for him on Thursday evening. All the delegates have to re-elect him as a official presidential candidate of GOP. I think we can express our views. We can express our thoughts. I think he should be able to listen to few of our thoughts and change. I think President Biden made a tremendous change. Why not President Trump cannot change?
Okay, that's well said. Professor Kasnik, help me wrap this up, sir. What is your expectation from the 120 days that remain now? Do you think everything is going to get reset from here on? And we did see the presidential debate. We saw that really didn't help President Biden that much. We saw his one-on-one interview. Clearly, he doesn't seem to be in a great position. How does that help Mr. Trump, and what kind of challenges do you think the Democrats are facing right now?
I think that this latest incident will only help strengthen Trump's candidacy. He was presenting himself as a strong man. That image has been reinforced. And you put him up against Biden, who seems so feeble, so weak, mentally and physically. He can barely walk across the stage, where Trump is this powerful guy who can get shot and he can walk off, under the blood dripping, and those images that are already out there. I think this will strengthen Trump's candidacy, and if he plays it right by toning down the violence and the vengeance, I think he'll be even stronger. So the Democrats definitely need an alternative to Biden. However, the Democratic Party leadership is doing everything they can to tamp down the demand for a change. And Biden refuses to get off the stage. And so if that's the case, then the Republicans are going to win. And as some of the Democrats have been warning, this could be a landslide, that the Republicans could win both houses of Congress in addition to the White House.
Right.
However, if the Democrats nominate a strong, younger, more progressive candidate who's going to take us off this path that we're on right now, then the Democrats would still have a chance. But I'm not optimistic at this moment. It could change. It could change rapidly. 120 days in the United States and American politics is an eternity.
Right.
And so even now, Trump's popularity is going to rise, but that could be a very temporary blip. And we could see this being a much more competitive race again. Right now, Trump is ahead in all of the swing states. Biden has suffered a setback after the debate and the recent discussion. But that again can all change. So just like on the global scene, we've got to look for a lot of change and more diplomacy and getting off the path of war. Domestically also, we've got to look to discussing policy issues. We are divided. There's big differences between the two parties.
Right.
Let those be the basis on which Americans decide which direction we want to go in the future.
Right. So U.S. needs solutions, but the divisions are here to stay. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining me on this show. An already unprecedented race has been transformed by political violence that is, of course, set to loom over, U.S. elections in the months ahead. What kind of fallout does it have on American voters, on larger geopolitics, is something that we will get to know in the coming weeks. Time for a short break. More news and updates on the other side.